we present mental models of experts for haptic devices and use it to organize a large haptic collection. This work was a collaboration between Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems in Germany and University of British Columbia in Canada. Over the last 3 decades, hundreds of grounded force feedback haptic devices have been invented in the haptics community. What these devices all have in common is that they are attached to a stable surface, such as a table in this case, and they can provide force to the user body that tells the user that she's pushing on a virtual button or going over a virtual surface or tapping on it. Within this definition, existing GFF devices have a wide variety of capabilities that makes them appropriate for very different use cases. To find an appropriate device for a use case, designers need to look through a long list of engineering attributes for the device. Each attribute describes one detail that may or may not greatly contribute to the overall experience and capabilities of the device. Together, these attributes form a high-dimensional space that is difficult to visualize and search and can even obscure the overall capabilities of the device. To facilitate semantic selection of haptic devices for experienced designers, we identified 7 categories and 6 key attributes that describe affordances of GFF devices. These categories and attributes are derived from the expert's mental model for haptic devices. We show how these expert categories and similarities can enable new ways to semantically organize and navigate online haptic libraries. To study the expert mental model, we ran a card sorting study with 18 haptics experts. These experts were industry practitioners, senior PhD students, postdocs, and faculty members with several years of experience with grounded force feedback devices. After a background interview, the experts rated their familiarity with a set of 40 GFF devices. On our interface, the experts could see images of the device, they could view all of the device attributes, and finally they could rate their familiarity with the device. This task prepared them for the main phase of the study, where they grouped the same set of devices according to their similarity. On our card sorting interface, the experts could drag and drop devices on the canvas. They could put devices close to each other to show that they are in the same group. They could review detailed attributes of the device. They could add annotations to describe the groups. They could copy a device and put it in 2 groups. And they could bookmark a device. After the experts completed their groupings, we interviewed them for 30 to 40 minutes to understand the meaning for their groups and the device attributes that they thought were important. How do experts perceive similarity of grounded force feedback haptic devices? We found that the experts vary along a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, some experts believe that each device belongs to one primary group, so they bind devices into exclusive groups. On the other end, some experts perceived many features for a device and tagged it by copying it into multiple groups. So here you see a lot of red icons that show duplication. For example, this device was in 3 different groups. Finally, some experts were in the middle and used a mix of binning and tagging to show similarity of the devices. In addition, some experts used proximity to link related groups, meaning that they put related groups close to each other. Here, the blue annotations show the sets of related groups. Other experts perceived a hierarchy between the groups, as you can see with the blue marks. What device attributes are important in defining the experts' categories? For this question, we used interview data and groupings from the 18 experts. We analyzed the interview data with thematic analysis, which led to a set of key attributes for the devices. We also derived a similarity matrix for the devices by aggregating the expert groupings. This matrix provides the similarity between all pairs of 75 GFF devices in our study. Next, we applied clustering analysis to the similarity matrix to find device categories. Our analysis resulted in 6 key attributes and 7 nested categories for GFF devices. One of the attributes that was very important for experts was how the device connects to the user body. Whether the device was for hands, whether it addressed individual fingers, or it was for another body part. Another attribute was the overall movement affordances of the device. Here, the experts cared whether the device could move in 3D space, 2D space, or 1D space, and whether this space was small or large. How versatile or specialized are the applications of the device was also important. Also, the experts cared about the mechanical structure, uncommon engineering features of the device, and the complexity of building them. In our clustering analysis, these attributes showed up as the subcategories. Finally, there were some devices that the experts had difficulty grouping. These were described as leftover devices or one-of-a-kind devices. These devices resulted in a miscellaneous group in our clusters. Together, these attributes and categories define device affordances, and they don't necessarily follow the literature definition of device attributes. Here is one example. This force feedback device can move in 2 dimensions in XY plane, and also it has a third rotational dimension. If we look at the literature, this device is described as 3 degrees of freedom, but the experts grouped this as a 2D or planar device. In other words, the experts thought the third rotational dimension is not as important as the 2 translational dimensions in the XY space. The experts were aware that they are diverging from the conventions in the field, but found it important to make these distinctions to better show device affordances. As P5 says, I classify the devices from the point of view of the end effector, or the user, not from the kinematic point of view. We use the expert categories to organize an online library of 100 GFF devices called Haptipedia. So this is the previous gallery view for Haptipedia, where the devices are listed in descending order of their production year. We redesigned the gallery view to group devices based on expert categories. We use hierarchy and proximity to show relationship between the device categories. Users can also see the device similarities in an arc visualization. The circles represent the devices and are grouped according to the expert categories. Users can see similarity of the categories and individual devices in the same or different categories. They can lower the threshold for device similarity or set a really high bar for similarity. We presented 7 nested categories and 6 key attributes for grounded force feedback haptic devices that are derived from a card sorting study with 18 haptics experts. These categories and attributes define affordances of haptic devices and can be used for navigating and searching large device collections.